Hello, this is Exploring with Edna, episode 16, CB Radio, follow-up, part 2 of 2. So good news, guys, we're pretty much all settled up here. We're gonna have the radio completely mounted. Last time you saw us mount the radio bracket right here. Don't mind the dirt I didn't clean up. All nice and secured, attached to my 102-inch whip antenna. One thing I did not mention, but it is good to show, is with how tall this antenna is, I don't want to smack everything all the time. So I got this very convenient little holder here. The antenna just slides in and out, stays in the right spot. The antenna cabling, just to overview again, goes all the way from the antenna across the firewall and into the compartment here through the firewall rubber grommet here. The power is also routed from the battery to my added fuse box, then to the noise filter, and then from the noise filter along the same route through the same area. Then it comes into the cab for the CB power itself. Goes underneath the carpet like so, into here to where my switches are, back up and over, and it meets up right down here. This is where also at the present moment here, if I open this up, see my mess of wiring. This is sort of my umbilical right now for the CB radio. It's where my extra antenna cable in goes, the coaxial. And here's my adapter for my CB radio itself. Eventually, the one part I do not have today is the actual finishing conduit. That's sort of a gray to blend in. So I'm eventually going to route that cable up to here, coming up right here. And with this gray conduit, I'm going to try to blend it in, sort of silicone or glue it somehow right in here. And that way it just follows along and it just blends in a little smoother, you know. So right now I'm going to show you the steps to mount my custom bracket I have created, which will be available for purchasing. I could order some more if you guys are interested in this. This is not the finished mounting, as you'll see as we go. Simply put, it's mounted between the mirror right here and goes all the way into the back into this little void section here with some very creative little bends in the metal support frame. I'm gonna go ahead and get this taken down and I'll show you step by step. Alright, so step one is really easy. I already have all the stuff taken off, so please don't mind that. But step one's pretty easy. So you got where mirror mounted up here like so. If you pop the cover off, which I just popped off camera there, you got the 3 screws that hold that in. Just undo those guys, the mirror comes off. That's step one here. Then when you guys get the bracket, if you do want these, it's going to be shipped flat most likely, and I'll include in those possible orders the measurements at least I'm bending this at. So the main little lip here, I think that's, I want to say 32. I might be a little off. I'll have to measure it again. And then at the end, so that it sits a little smoother. So here's the next stage. This is the actual board where the radio or whatever equipment you'd like to mount in the center of the console's mounted, using tongue and groove boards, otherwise known as beadboard, glued together, cut to size 11 inches wide. This is currently cut to 22 inches long, and I hope that should be sufficient. And there's also a backboard. That's where it's all held together while we're in the gluing process. And this is going to secure to the top of the metal bracket here in the next stage. So we'll see that here in a moment. Alright, so this is the next stage here. here's our custom metal bracket that you saw earlier. We're going to drill at least 4 to 5 holes along each of these long arms and probably 3 on the short edge here. So the next stage is we're going to drill our holes. We got 5 along the long edges and 3 along the short edge. And I think I'm in the wrong mode. Alright, don't mind me, I just don't know how to drill, guys. Alright guys, so here's the next step. So here's the piece of metal. As you see, all the holes are drilled. Now we're going to go along and drill some pilot holes for the actual wood screws. Alright, and let's get some screws in those guys to begin so it doesn't shift on us. Alright, so here we are. The brackets are all screwed on. Don't mind that one I misdrilled, I didn't do it. And now on to a finished stain. So here we are, starting the staining process to help blend it into the roof a little bit, being a gray interior, but you could paint this or rattle can it or stain it, whatever. You don't even have to use wood for the main surface, I guess, if you really want a metal face. Here's the end result. It's getting dark, so we have a flashlight on it. Nice gray, brownish wood tones here. Not completely dried yet, but dry enough to mount the hardware. Alrighty guys. All the hardware's mounted. It's getting super dark, so pardon the darkness here. Here's the back side. Don't mind the messy cable, that's just for the better output internal speaker. I'll flip this guy around. And there's the actual setup. There's the external speaker. There's the radio itself. So let's get this guy in. Alright guys, sorry for the change of light here, it just got too dark last night. So the next stage here before we go installing it up on the roof here is got some double-sided tape to make this easy. Got a strip of it here already. I think I've ripped it to the right length. Then we're just going, doesn't have to look pretty necessarily, just has to be functional. Alright. Apparently the tape is not sticky enough. But this is purely just to hold it in place so that it's a little easier to get it on. So, and this is purely just going to be to hold our anti-grip stuff. Just show to the camera here. That is just to help create some sort of gasket to reduce metal rubbing noises if it does happen. Just getting the other side out of the camera view here now. Alright, so we got our material here. None of this has to be exact, though I'm not going to cut it too big because I don't want to see any major bleed over, for instance. That really looks crummy. We're gonna put that like so, just going around the thing. We're going to continue on to put a little piece on each of the spots, and we'll see you at the next step. Alright guys, so the next step here, now that we have our insulator here to avoid metal on metal rub noise on both sides of the bracket, we're going to take our holder. I've already pre-applied this, but just using some duct tape, quite simply. I've installed it here to help avoid any noises where it's gonna go into here. So then these end grooves line up like so. They go in approximately like that. And then lining up to the front here, where there's these grooves in the bracket, we're gonna push that forward. A little bit of a wiggle game, but there we go. As you could roughly see, our one top hole, then two bottom holes. Then we take the mirror. You could show them the grooves here. So you see these raised little bumps here, so the mirror's gonna sit flat. So then we simply push the mirror right into so, and Gidgets come to say hello. Then screw into the top to first get it where we could awkwardly not have to hold this, operate a camera, and do all this. So once we get one screw in, it's really easy going. So one screw's in. You could let go of it now. And then we get the bottom two in. That one's in. And this one's in. As you could see, our insulating material is well covering here, like I said, to hopefully reduce any long-term metal on metal, plastic on metal, rubbing, etc., etc. The next stages are our cover. So right here, this is the little cover that goes right here. What's fair to note, by the way, though, is because the thickness of the metal and the way these grooves work on the side, primarily where that lines up to the holes on the side, you have to shave this off by about 1 millimeter around this. I used a roto tool, I believe that's what they're called. Hopefully someone could correct me if I just called it the wrong thing, but I just used a disc tool on there and just very, very carefully and slowly went around and trimmed that down. Then this goes like so if I didn't drop it, and voila, there we go, it's installed. And there's Gidget. Okay, guys, so here's the final product. The radio's installed. As you can see, there's not much chatter around this part of the woods. I'm not necessarily using it on an active trail right now. One thing I am going to do to keep this dangly out of the way here is using an ID holder here. You could get official ones that are at truck stops, but far more expensive. We got like a 2-pack for like $6, I believe. This is going to go around the cable here. Do that right now. Just like so. And then I'm going to secure this onto the coaxial back here because it's sturdy enough to hold it. And there we go. I can now pull this out. Test 1, 2, 3. And it works. It just keeps that cable sutured up. Now, not everyone's gonna have a need for that, but just a little tip and trick I recommend.